If a man twice your size grabbed your shirt and a woman you raised shoved you to the floor, would you sign away 800 acres and $12 million, or stand up slow, fix your collar, and start a kind of lesson they don't teach in school? I am 79 years old. I don't run, and I don't shout. I plant, and I remember. My husband Earl used to say, "May the land keep score." So do I. When my own blood tried to take what Earl and I built, our pasture, our creek, our wind that smells like rain, I learned something useful. Bullies do fast work, justice likes to move steady. They thought that paper and a mean hand could erase me. They forgot I keep copies, I keep witnesses, and I keep one more thing they never counted on, time enough to make them answer. My name is May Whitlow. I live on the north edge of Carter County, where the dirt runs red and the grass hums when the wind blows right. The ranch house is plain, tin roof, wide porch, boots lined by the door. I was making coffee when the screen door slapped open and my daughter Tina, barreled in like a storm you see and still can't stop. Her boy Eli came right behind, taller than the doorway, jaw clenched, eyes the kind that never fully look at you. "We need signatures, Mama," Tina said. Her voice had sugar on top and broken glass under it. "Today." I set the kettle down. "For what?" I asked, like I didn't already feel the ground shift. Eli dropped a leather folder on my table. Transfer of the South Pastures, the river tract, and assignment of the bank line. It's cleaner if it's in my name. There's a buyer, timber outfit, closing Friday. They wired an advance. 12 million clears if we don't jam the works. Cleaner, I said, testing the word. Cleaner than me. Tina smiled tight. It's business. It's our family, I said. Eli stepped in close. He grabbed a fistful of my flannel shirt to pull me toward the chair like I was a stray. "Sit," he said. I didn't move fast enough. Tina put both hands on my shoulders and pushed. I stumbled, hip striking the table. The coffee sloshed. The old mug I use for fence staples hit the floor and cracked in two neat pieces, like it was trying to keep the peace even while it broke. "Stop," I said, more to the memory of my good mug than to them. I sat because a fall hurts worse than a bruise, and I know the math of a body at my age. Tina slid papers toward me, deed, power of attorney, a letter for the bank. "Just sign," she said. "Don't start." "Don't start," I echoed. I looked at the block letters printed beside the signature lines. My name. My land. There, hurry. I pressed my palm to the table to steady the shake in me that was half anger and half fear. "Who's the notary?" I asked. Eli smirked. "We don't need one." "You do," I said. "You always do." "We'll bring one later," Tina snapped. "Just sign now. We'll take care of the rest." I picked up the pen. I did not sign. I set it down. I folded my hands. I looked at Eli's fist still bunched in the air like it couldn't figure out how to stop being a fist. "Move your hand off my shirt," I said softly. He let go. To him, that probably felt like mercy. To me, it felt like inventory. "We don't have time for your moods," Tina said. "They're logging by September." "That bottom," I said, "isn't timber. It's water. It's shade. It's where Earl and I named calves." "Memories don't pay notes," Eli muttered. "That why you need my signature?" I asked. He slid the pen again. His breath smelled like the coffee he took from my stove without asking. "Sign it, Nana," he said, using the name he hasn't used since he figured out swagger. "You can stay in the house. We'll set you up nice." He thought he was offering kindness. He was offering crumbs. I looked at my daughter, the same girl who used to lay her head in my lap when storms cracked the sky. There was no girl in that face now. Only a mouth that liked the shortest road. "Give me an hour," I said. "I'll look." 15 minutes, Tina shot back. "An hour," I repeated. "Or call your sheriff and tell her what you did to an old woman in her kitchen." They looked at each other. Eli flinched, just a thread. Tina sighed, "All theater." "Fine," she said. 1 hour. We're waiting in the truck." They left in a roll of dust. I locked the door and stood still until the air inside the house remembered how to be mine. My hip throbbed where I'd hit the table. I pressed my hand there like a mother over a fever. Then I moved. I pulled the little ladder from the pantry and climbed to the top shelf, where the flower sits beside a blue shoebox with rubber bands around it. Inside the shoebox, copies of every deed since 1957, Earl's neat notes, a map with our boundaries traced in red. Under the map, a thin envelope I'd labeled in block letters 10 years back, right of first refusal Ortega, record if threatened. Lyle Ortega runs cattle on the west side. Earl and Lyle hunted doves together the year they both went gray. When Lyle was trying to piece his place together, we wrote him a right of first refusal. If we ever sold the south pastures, he got first crack, same terms as any buyer. We had it notarized at the feed store by Donna with the good hair. We filed a copy with Lyle. We did not record it, Earl said, no need. It's neighbor business. But I also wrote, in my own hand, record if threatened. I didn't like making prophecies. Sometimes you just label a storm. I laid that paper on the table. Next, I reached behind the sugar canister and took down the little camera Earl screwed into the top of the window frame the winter after a coyote stole a hen. It blinks red at night. Tina never looked up that high when she was mad. I popped the card, slid it into the little viewer. There we were, Eli's fist on my shirt, Tina's hands on my shoulders, me hitting the table, the mug breaking, the papers sliding. I watched the part where Eli said "Sign it, Nana," and felt the heat in my chest turn into a different kind of fire, clean, steady, useful. I put the card in an envelope and wrote evidence on the front. I put the right of first refusal under it. Then I opened the drawer by the stove where I keep the little black address book with the frayed cover and called 3 numbers. First, Sheriff Nora Briggs. May, she said, calm as always. You all right? I will be, I said. I have a bruise and a video. I also have a closing Friday I want you to know about. Don't sign a thing, she said. I'll swing by. Bring your quiet, I said. And your patience. Next, I called Ava Rangel at the legal clinic in town. She used to help rodeo kids with fines and get their mamas their deposits back from mean landlords. She's small and precise and likes rules the way I like rain. I've got duress on video, I told her. And I've got a right of first refusal I want to record in the morning. I'll meet you at the clerk's at 8, she said. We'll file an affidavit of duress and a criminal complaint. We'll also fax notice to the title company that any conveyance is disputed. That freezes most honest people. Most, I said. Most, she echoed. Third, I called Lyle. He answered panting, he always does chores fast. May? Remember that paper you and Earl signed? I asked. It's time. I'll hitch up, he said. I owe Earl more than this. We hung up. I made myself a sandwich because fuel is part of a plan. I took a picture of my hip. I pressed ice to it. I wrote out what happened in a slow, clear hand, signed it, and dated it. Then I pulled one more envelope from the back of the shoebox, the one that says minerals in Earl's block letters. In 1974, Earl severed the mineral rights on our place when a cousin was trying to drink and mine at the same time. We kept the minerals in the family, locked them, and never told a soul outside of Christmas and brandings. Surface is one thing. What's under it is another. I heard Eli's truck rumble back up. He stomped on the porch. Time's up, he yelled through the door like a boy on a dare. I opened it, slow and polite. Come tomorrow, I said. 8:30. We'll go together to the clerk. Bring your buyer. What for? He snapped. So I can show him what he's actually buying, I said, and let the door swing shut. In the quiet after, I poured the coffee I never got to drink. I set the right of first refusal on top of the stack of papers and slid the camera card under it. I looked at Earl's block letters, minerals, and smiled in a way that would have worried Tina if she'd ever bothered to learn my faces. At dawn, I would record 2 things and call 3 more, and then I would lace my boots and walk into town like a woman with a fuse and a match. Because I hadn't told them the part that would hurt most, I still owned the part of the ranch they couldn't see. The title company had no idea it was walking into a trap. The rooster crowed at first light, and I was already lacing my boots. My hip ached where it hit the table yesterday, but aches are like alarms, they remind you you're still moving. I tucked the manila envelope with the camera card, the right of first refusal, and my handwritten affidavit into my brown leather purse. I slipped Earl's minerals envelope under my arm. If Tina and Eli thought they could shove me into a corner, they were about to learn I've still got edges. By 7, I was parked in front of the Carter County Courthouse, brick red and square against the pale sky. Ava Rangel met me on the steps, slim in her gray blazer, her black hair pulled tight in a bun, a file folder in her hands. She smiled, but her eyes were serious. "You bring everything?" she asked. I opened my purse and showed her the stack. Evidence, refusal, affidavit, minerals. "Enough." "More than enough," she said. "Let's make it official." Inside, the air smelled like old paper and floor polish. We walked straight to the clerk's counter. Betty Lou, clerk since Reagan was in office, peered over her glasses at me. "May Whitlow," she said. "What trouble did those kids of yours stir up now?" I set the right of first refusal on the counter. "Need this recorded. Effective immediately." Her eyebrows shot up. "Lyle Ortega's signature. Well, I'll be. Why didn't you record this years ago?" "Didn't need to until yesterday," I said. "Now I do." Ava added, "And here's an affidavit of duress. Mrs. Whitlow was forced, physically, to consider signing over property. We're filing a criminal complaint as well." Betty Lou stamped the refusal, her seal thunking down with authority. "This means no clean sale without offering it to Lyle first. Buyers hate messes like this." "That's the point," I said. At 8:30 sharp, just like I'd told them, Tina and Eli stormed through the courthouse doors. Tina wore her cream sweater and gold earrings, her hair in a tight bun. Eli was in his boots and a starched plaid shirt, folder tucked under his arm. Their buyer trailed behind, a heavy-set man in his 50s with a timber company logo on his vest, a phone already buzzing in his hand. Tina spotted me at the counter. "Mama, what are you doing?" "Protecting my land," I said calmly. Eli slapped his folder on the counter. "We have a deal. Closing Friday. You're not going to ruin this." Betty Lou looked up at him over her glasses. "Young man, this deal is already tangled. Right of first refusal just got recorded. Buyer here doesn't get a clean title until it runs through Ortega. And we've got a duress complaint on file." The buyer's face drained. "Duress?" he muttered. He turned on Eli. "You didn't tell me there were competing rights." "There weren't." Eli snapped. "She's making this up." I reached into my purse and slid the little envelope across the counter. "Video card," I said. "Shows you putting your hands on me. Sheriff's getting a copy." Tina's face paled. "Mama." "Don't mama me," I said, my voice like steel. "You shoved me like a stranger in my own kitchen." The buyer cursed under his breath. "I can't touch this. I'm out." He stormed toward the doors, phone already at his ear. Eli's jaw clenched. "You just cost us $12 million. "No," I said, meeting his eyes. "You cost yourself. I'm just collecting receipts." Sheriff Briggs appeared in the hallway, her khaki uniform crisp, her short silver hair tucked under her hat. She stepped between us. "I need to speak to you, Eli, and you, Tina," she said, her voice calm but carrying weight. "We've had a complaint. We'll take statements in my office." Tina sputtered. "This is a family matter." Sheriff Briggs shook her head. "Not when you put hands on someone. Not when property fraud's on the table. Family or not, the law cares." They followed her down the hall, arguing in sharp whispers. Ava turned to me. "You want to push charges?" I sighed. "Not yet. Let's hold it. Sometimes fear teaches quicker than court. But keep the complaint warm." "Done," she said, sliding papers back into her folder. I stepped outside into the sunlight. Lyle's truck was already rumbling up the street, dust trailing behind. He climbed down, broad-shouldered in his denim jacket, and tipped his hat. "Got your message, May. You sure you want me to step in?" "Yes," I said. They thought they had a buyer. Now they've got a neighbor with rights. He grinned. "I'll file my intent today. They'll choke on it." That night, back at the ranch, I sat at my kitchen table, the cedar box open again. I laid Earl's Minerals envelope on the table and traced the block letters with my finger. The surface rights might tempt them, but what lay beneath, that was still mine, clean and untouchable. If Tina and Eli thought the south pastures were the prize, they hadn't even glanced under the dirt. The house was quiet, but my mind was busy, drawing lines like furrows in a field. They tried to push me down once. Next time, I'd be standing with the law, the neighbors, and the ground itself at my back. Because the game had only just begun. And they didn't know yet that their own greed was about to break them. By Thursday morning, word had already spread across Carter County that the Whitlow land sale had gone sideways. Out here, gossip rides faster than any horse. At the feed store, men in denim leaned on sacks of grain and whispered. At church, women shook their heads over coffee. And every whisper carried the same tune, May stood her ground. I sat at my kitchen table, cardigan buttoned tight, poring over the stack of papers in my cedar box. On top sat the minerals envelope Earl had labeled in his steady hand. Below it, the promissory notes Tina and Eli never thought I kept. I could almost hear Earl's voice, when they press you, May, press back where it hurts. The phone rang. It was Sheriff Briggs. May, she said, I finished reviewing your video. Clear as day. Eli grabbed you, Tina shoved. You want me to move forward? Keep it warm, I said. Fear's teaching them more right now than a cell would. She chuckled. You've always been cleverer than the law. I hung up just as gravel crunched outside. Eli's truck barreled into my yard, dust curling behind it. He slammed the door and stormed to the porch. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his jaw set. Tina trailed behind, arms crossed, her cream sweater stiff against the heat. You ruined everything, Eli snapped as soon as he hit the steps. The buyer's gone. They want clean title, and you jammed it up. Good, I said, stepping onto the porch, my hands resting calmly on the railing. It was never clean to begin with. Tina's voice was sharp. You don't understand, Mama. This deal was supposed to clear our debts. Eli had loans lined up, millions. Without the timber money, the bank's going to come for us. I looked at her, steady. So you thought you'd push me down and take my land to cover your mistakes? She flinched but held her chin high. It was the only way. I let silence hang heavy, then said, You always did like shortcuts, Tina. Problem is, shortcuts cost double in the end. Eli paced, fists clenching. What do you want, Nana? You want us ruined? No, I said softly. I want respect. And if respect has to come through ruin, so be it. They didn't answer. They stomped back to the truck, gravel spitting under the tires as they left. That evening, Lyle stopped by. His old boots thudded on the porch, hat in hand. Filed my intent, he said. County clerk accepted it. Means if they ever try to sell, I get first call. They're boxed in tight. I smiled faintly. Thank you, Lyle. Earl would have been glad. Anything for Earl, and you, he said, tipping his hat. After he left, I pulled out Earl's mineral rights paperwork. In 1974, we'd severed the minerals from the surface. The south pastures were theirs only if I agreed, and I never had. Underneath, the oil leases, the gas royalties, the rights to what lay hidden, that was all still mine. They didn't know it yet. But soon they would. Friday morning, Tina came storming in again, Eli behind her. We found another buyer, she said, waving a new letter of intent. A bigger company. They don't care about Ortega. They'll pay more. I laid the mineral rights papers on the table and slid them across. Then you better tell them the surface isn't the whole pie. The minerals are mine. No buyer touches a dime without me. Eli snatched the papers, scanned them, then cursed under his breath. You've got to be kidding me. Tina's face drained of color. You kept this all these years? Of course, I said. Earl and I protected what mattered. You thought you could steal from me. You forgot the ground remembers who owns it. Eli slammed the papers back down. You're bluffing. I leaned forward, eyes sharp. Try me. They left without another word, fury boiling off them. That night, I called Ava. It's time, I said. Let's prepare the mineral rights record. And while we're at it, let's notify the bank that any liens involving my land are invalid without my signature. Already ahead of you, she said. By Monday, they'll be choking on paperwork. I hung up, poured myself a cup of tea, and sat back. The house was quiet, the cedar box closed. The pastures outside swayed under the moonlight, calm as if nothing had happened. But I knew the truth. This was only the second act. And when Tina and Eli came crawling back, the real lesson would start. Because the deeper they dug, the more they'd find I still owned everything that mattered. And I wasn't done teaching. By Monday morning, Carter County was buzzing. Folks at the diner paused mid-bite when I walked in. Men at the co-op stopped their talk when my boots hit the floorboards. Everyone knew Tina and Eli had tried to cash out Whitlow land and ended up with their hands full of fire ants instead. Out here, reputations ride faster than trucks. I sat at my usual booth, ordered black coffee, and listened. Farmers whispered about May's golden hold. Ranchers muttered, "That woman's tougher than cedar." I didn't smile. I just sipped, knowing every word was a nail in Tina and Eli's coffin of credibility. By noon, they came knocking. Eli's knuckles hit my front door hard enough to rattle the glass. I opened it slow. He stood there, plaid shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. Tina was beside him, cream sweater now rumpled, makeup smeared. They looked smaller than usual. Desperation does that. "Can we talk, Mama?" Tina asked, her voice brittle. I stepped aside. "Talk." At the table, Eli dropped into a chair, his hand running through his hair. "The bank's breathing down my neck. They want payments we can't cover." The buyer pulled out. Ortega's filing spooked everyone. "If you don't help, we lose everything." I set a teapot on the stove, slow and steady. "Everything but your pride, you mean?" Tina's eyes filled. "We were wrong. We shouldn't have pushed you. We shouldn't have tried to take what wasn't ours. But please, Mama, don't let us drown." I poured hot water into 2 mugs and set them on the table. "Funny. Yesterday, I was worth shoving. Today, I'm worth saving." Eli slammed his fist on the table. "We're family. Don't you care what happens to us?" I fixed my gaze on him. "You cared when you grabbed my shirt? When you shoved me into my own table? That's how you treat family." He looked away. The house fell quiet but for the kettle hissing. Finally, Tina spoke, softer. "What do you want, Mama? Just tell us and we'll do it." I opened the cedar box and laid out the promissory notes, every dollar they'd borrowed and never repaid. Next, I set down the mineral rights, clean and notarized. Then on top, I placed my newest creation, a draft trust agreement for the Whitlow Community Fund. "You'll sign these," I said. "You'll transfer $2 million into this fund immediately. Every year for the next 10, you'll add $500,000. It will pay for neighbors' feed, medical bills, school supplies. Folks will know Whitlow land still cares for Whitlow County. And they'll know you paid for it." Tina's voice cracked. "That'll ruin us." "No," I said. "It'll save you. From yourselves." Eli leaned forward, jaw trembling. "And if we don't?" I tapped the video card envelope. Then I let Sheriff Briggs press charges. Assault. Fraud. Attempted coercion. "I'll let the county, the bank, and every buyer know exactly who you are. You'll lose more than money. You'll lose your name." They sat frozen, the weight of my words sinking in. At last, Tina reached for the pen with shaking hands. She signed the trust agreement, tears dripping onto the page. Eli signed too, his scrawl angry but final. When they finished, I slid the papers back into the cedar box. "Good," I said calmly. "Now you'll show up at the pantry every Saturday. You'll stack cans and bag groceries. No cameras, no speeches. Just work. That's how you'll learn what you tried to throw away." Eli muttered, "You can't force us." I leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Son, I don't have to. Your signature already did." The room went quiet. They stared at me, broken but bound. When they left, I stood on the porch and watched the dust trail fade. The land stretched wide before me, steady and strong. I whispered to Earl's memory, "We're winning, love. They don't even know the last trap's still waiting." Because under my kitchen table, I still kept one more card. And when they thought they'd paid enough, I'd show them it wasn't close. Tuesday came cold and clear, the kind of blue morning that makes the grass shine even when the ground's tired. I baked 2 pans of cornbread for the pantry and loaded them in my old Ford. At 9 sharp, I pulled behind the church and found a line already forming. Mothers with toddlers, a retired miner with a bad knee, a teacher between paychecks. Tina and Eli were there too, trying to look invisible. They wore work gloves that still had the price tags on them. "Morning," I said, setting the cornbread on the folding table. Tina kept her eyes down. "Morning." Eli swallowed and reached for a stack of canned peaches. "Where do you want these?" "Back wall," I said. "Labels out. Count as you stack, the count matters." He nodded and started moving, quiet for once. Tina bagged rice, measuring with a scoop, tapping the bag to settle it the way I taught her to settle flour when she was 12, and we baked biscuits for the fair. For 2 hours we worked without small talk. Sweat washed some of the pride off them. People thanked them without knowing the whole story. That is its own education. After the line thinned, Pastor June gathered us near the door, hands folded. "Thank you," she said. "Y'all fed a lot of families today." She looked at Tina and Eli. "You're welcome back this Saturday." "We'll be here," Eli said, voice low. I looked at my watch. "Come with me," I said. "We've got one more stop before lunch." They followed me in their truck, suspicion trailing them like dust. We parked on Main Street and walked into the Carter County Title Office, where the air always smells like paper and decisions. Ava Rangel waited at the counter with a neat stack of documents and a smile that said she'd slept fine. "Mrs. Whitlow," she said, "ready?" "Ready," I said, and set the blue folder on the counter, the one I'd kept under my kitchen table since the spring after Earl died. I'd labeled it in block letters he would have liked, Stewardship. Tina frowned at the folder like it might sprout teeth. "What is that?" "Last trap," I said. "The kind that keeps the honest safe and the greedy tired." Ava slid the first document to the clerk. "Deed of conservation easement," she said. 800 acres, holder the Carter County Land Trust. Restrictions: no subdivision, no clear-cut, no sale of water rights, no transfer without trustee consent and court review. Grantor retains a life estate and grazing rights, with a management plan filed and recorded. Eli stared. "You're making it so nobody can sell it." "I'm making it so nobody can ruin it," I said. "Including you. Especially you." The clerk stamped. The thunk sounded like thunder and mercy. Ava slid the second document. "Whitlow Stewardship Trust," she said. "Trustees, Mrs. Whitlow as managing trustee for life. Successors, Land Trust Director, Sheriff Briggs, community seat, and one neighbor elected by adjoining landowners. Poison pill clause: any beneficiary who commits elder abuse, coercion, or fraud against the managing trustee forfeits any role and any benefit." Tina's mouth opened, then closed. "You wrote me out." "No," I said. "You wrote yourself out. I just had the clerk read your handwriting back to you." The clerk stamped again. Paper turned into fence. Ava slid the third document. "Assignment of mineral rights to the May and Earl Minerals Trust," she said. "Trust purpose: hold, lease, or decline mineral development under strict rules. No surface disturbance without unanimous trustee consent. 25% of net royalties, if any, flow to the Whitlow Community Fund." Eli ran a hand through his hair. "You tied every door." "I left one door open," I said. "The one that leads to service." The clerk finished stamping, slid the stack back to Ava, and smiled at me in that way small towns do when somebody wins for the right reasons. "Recorded," she said. "Effective today." Outside on the sidewalk, the air felt brighter. Tina leaned against the brick, eyes shiny. "Why?" she whispered. "Why go this far?" "So the land keeps teaching when I'm gone," I said. "So no smooth voice can talk you into forgetting where you came from. So Carter County keeps grass and water and a place to breathe that doesn't cost admission." Eli stared at his boots. "We can't fix what we did." "You can start to," I said. "And starting looks like showing up Saturday, every Saturday, until your back learns the word humble." My phone buzzed. "Sheriff Briggs." "May," she said, "quick update. I met with the county attorney. We'll hold charges in abeyance if they complete a year of verifiable service, pay into the fund as agreed, and stay clear of you and your land except by invitation. If they slip, we file the day they do." "Good," I said. "Let them feel the leash they wove." She exhaled. "You sure you don't want me to haul them in today?" I want them to sweat, I said. Sweat makes better soil than ash. I hung up and turned to Tina and Eli. You heard that. You'll keep your freedom by showing you know what it means. They nodded, both of them smaller than they had been, the way people get when a mirror finally shows them their whole face. I drove home slow on the county road, the fields rolling out like a quilt Earl and I stitched together for half a century. When I pulled up to the house, Lyle's pickup was there. He sat on the porch rail like a man who belongs. Word travels, he said, grinning. Heard you made that easement iron. I did, I said, coming up the steps. Trust is recorded too. Minerals tucked where slick fingers can't reach. He nodded at the horizon. Earl's grinning somewhere. I sat, the wood warm under me. We watched a hawk circle the back pasture. Quiet held for a while. Then Lyle cleared his throat. You know, he said, I told the land trust I'd cover their closing costs if they needed it. Town's already taking up a collection for your fund. Pride looks good on folks when they wear it for somebody else. That fund isn't mine, I said. It's the county's. I'm just the jar on the counter. He tipped his hat. Good jar. At dusk, I set a pot of beans on the stove and wrote 3 letters at my table. The first to the bank, confirming the trust and the easement, reminding them that any lien attempts against my land were void without my signature and trustee consent. The second to the timber outfit, enclosing copies of the recordings and wishing them luck somewhere with fewer fences. The third to Tina and Eli, short and plain, you are loved. You are also held to your word. Show up. Do good. The land forgives slow. So do I. Wednesday night, Pastor June called. You up for Sunday? She asked. Folks want to hear from you. I don't want a parade, I said. You'll get a potluck, she said, laughing. Bring cornbread. Sunday came warm and windy. The fellowship hall smelled like casseroles and hope. After the last hymn, Pastor June waved me up. I told the story in simple pieces, how Earl and I signed papers when the sky was still clear, how hands on a shirt and a shove at a table don't change what's true, how paper can be fences, yes, but also promises that hold. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. People in small towns collect context like mason jars. After Tina and Eli stood up on their own, Tina's voice shook. We were wrong, she said. We hurt what we should have held. We're going to earn back what we can. Eli said nothing, just nodded with his whole body in that way men do when the words would break if they tried to carry them. People didn't clap. They did something better. They lined up to hug and to sign the volunteer sheet for the pantry. Old feuds softened. A boy in a ball cap put $5 in the fund jar and tried to look like he wasn't doing it. At home that evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and watched the light stretch across the north pasture. The easement was recorded. The trust was live. The minerals were locked where they belonged. The fund had its first endowment, and Saturday had a roster. I thought of Earl's line, the land keeps score. Today the score felt honest. I closed my eyes and breathed in dust grass, and the faint sweetness of creek water on the wind. The house hummed the old tune it always hums when things are set right. Then a white envelope slid under my front door, no stamp, no name, just thick paper and fresh ink. I picked it up, weighed it in my palm, and smiled without opening it. Some lessons don't stick the first time. Grateful you stayed with me. Have you been through something like this? Tell me in the comments. Let's make this a community where truth matters. Subscribe for the next chapter.